But there you go, there is the old Trafford waterfall, famous now across the world. They haven't fixed it yet, and to Jim Ratcliffe, who is here today, can add that to the growing list. What would you do first, the team or the roof? We've seen it all.
Good question. Very good question. Where do we start from? To fix the team or to fix the stadium? Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos have a hell of a job on their hands. Yesterday, Manchester United came up against Arsenal and we lost in dire circumstances. Typical Manchester United for the past God knows how many weeks. We did not put up much of a fight. We'll delve into the game a lot more deeper and take the game apart and see where things did go wrong for Manchester United and the slight positives that we could take from the game. It was our 9th home defeat of the season in the league, 19th loss this season in all competition, the worst in the club's history since 1978. The bad records are tumbling, you know. And a few of our legends had a few things to say after the game. Wayne Rooney, he put a boot into some of the players, you know. He says some of the players are ducking and saving their legs for the Euros and the FA Cup final. We'll look into that. We'll see the truths and the facts of what he's trying to say. But there was one major positive. The women's team was able to show some cojones, some balls that the men's team simply doesn't have right now. They managed to annex our first trophy for the women's team since it's been reinstated. I mean, 5 or 6 years ago. At Wembley, they were in the final of the FA Cup last year. Disappointingly, they lost to Chelsea. But they made amends this season by beating Tottenham Hotspurs by 4 goals to 0. Shout outs to the girls who have been there from the very beginning. Mary Earps, Turner, Ella Toon, the star girl, Rachel Williams, and then Garcia for their goals yesterday. They've been amazing all season. It's not been the easiest of seasons in the WSL for the women this year, despite all the highs of last season qualifying for the Champions League for the first time. They made amends for a poor league season by annexing that FA Cup trophy. It kind of goes for the men's team as well. They've had a dire Premier League season, but they could, make amends at the end with an FA Cup trophy. Another back-to-back FA Cup final, but this time around against the same opposition, Manchester City, and hopefully, maybe fingers crossed, they'll be able to do something. Sir Jim Ratcliffe also had news in the stadium. We've had a bit of transfer rumors to discuss with you. Benjamin Sesko's agent was at Old Trafford yesterday. I'm not so sure fans will be enthused about that after seeing what a man-child in Rasmus Højlund has been through. They would probably want a bit of experience compared to another youngster. But then we'll delve more into that. Before we do that, we need you to subscribe. We appreciate your subscriptions from the last recording, your views and all. We want you to do the same. We want us to grow this channel together. So do not forget to hit the subscribe button. Let's just delve into all the happenings from yesterday and all the transfer rumors and all the news and everything that's happening in and around United in United Today. So let's just get right into it. The Arsenal game. What was interesting was the selection ahead of the game. For a lot of fans, once we saw the team sheet, we were a bit scared. We were thinking we're in for a drubbing. It was more like some players that we didn't expect to play that were not even in the squad. Bruno Fernandes, despite the manager claiming that he had returned to training, was not in the team. Marcus Rashford was not in the team. We had a back four of Dalot, a left back. Was it Johnny Evans, Casemiro? Oh goodness, Casemiro. We'll talk about Casemiro a lot today. Casemiro and Aaron Wan-Bissaka at right back. In midfield, it was a combination of Scott McTominay playing in the 10, Kobe Mainoo playing alongside Sofian Amrabat, who had a decent game, to be honest, in midfield. And then In the forward areas, young Garnacho played like a child. Rasmus Højlund was isolated and then starved of opportunities. But then I'll also talk about him a bit because I expect a lot more from him. And Amad Diallo started his first game this season under this manager. A lot of fans have been asking, should we have started him quite a bit more? But then we'll delve into that as well. So let's just get into it. It was a more compact performance, but then we barely landed a blow on the Arsenal, to be honest. Let's just call it spade a spade. It was spells of possession without actually hurting them. And to Arsenal's credit, I'm going to give them a lot of credit because I saw them put up such a professional performance at the Etihad, and they could have gotten even a win from it, but they got a very respectable draw. And yesterday, despite being the better team, despite being the team in form, they gave the game the respect that it deserves. They were compact, they were solid, they were barely under threat. They just knew they could get the goal that could get them the points, and they did get the goal that got them the points. And speaking of the goal, the manner of which it did come about, Casemiro, Jesus Christ, he's been horrible ever since he came back from injury. He's not found his feet. Playing in central defense has not done him a world of good, but there's some things, basic things that you do expect from an experienced player like him, and he's not covering himself in any form of glory. He just had to push up. It was just one simple, basic error, and Arsenal capitalized on it. And Havertz did another cut back. It's always this cut back. It's always a cut back. And Trossard put the ball at the back of the net, and Arsenal were, in my opinion, in cruise control. We had little bits of openings here and there, especially balls falling to Garnacho, but then he barely made the right decision yesterday. It was our biggest threat going forward, but then in as much as he was our biggest threat, he was also was making the worst form of decisions, taking shots when he's not supposed to, not crossing when he's supposed to, heavy crosses. He just played like a child yesterday, like somebody who needs more years of experience, Yeah, so that just sums up the game. Shout outs to Amad and Amrabat for putting up some bit of display, but then I wouldn't really call it special. Special is those players winning us the game. They didn't come close to winning us the game, and that's just about it. It was dogged, it was boring, and we deserve to lose again. For the Upton's time, we lost another football game. After the game, Wayne Rooney had quite a bit to say about some players whom he feels, despite being injured, should be putting their bodies on the line. He feels like players are saving their legs for the FA Cup final and the Euros. I'm not in complete agreement with that because I feel like Wayne Rooney is one of those. Our legends are a problem for me. Our legends are not measured in their utterances in the media. They pile on more pressure when it's not supposed to be the case. They do not help with the situation. I mean, it's bad already, but then to throw the players under the bus that way, because I feel like I'm not the most staunch defender of most of these players in this team. I don't like the team. It's not a great team. We need better players. Our squad isn't good. That's why when there's a raft of injuries like this, we are not able to compete because our squad is just not good enough. The depth of quality is just not there. But players have sacrificed a lot this season. Erik ten Hag has thrown in players who are either half fit or injured to do a job, and it has come to the detriment of our team. So I just think it's gotten to the point where you pull the plug. You pull the plug on so many of the players because we know Bruno Fernandes is playing with a broken hand, basically. Johnny Evans has not been fit for weeks. Harry Maguire was not fit prior to him getting injured. Prior to the FA Cup final, Harry Maguire wasn't even training. Rashford has been reported to be playing with injuries for quite some time now. This is the first time he's played with injuries for this club. He literally played with a broken back some years ago under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and all that. If you remember the Chelsea game, Rafa Varane was not fit, started the game, had to come off. Johnny Evans came on for some few minutes, had to go off for Willie Cambola to finish the game. Aaron Wan-Bissaka before the FA Cup quarterfinal against Liverpool, he had not been in training for weeks actually with an injury, but then he had to come in and do a job for 70 odd minutes, and he did a great job. And then we were able to win the game thanks to his help and then get into the next stage of the competition. So players have been sacrificed and the manager has been putting some players at risk, but then I just feel it's time. It's about time. The season is done. We are either going to finish in 8th spot and miss out on Europe, or win the FA Cup and qualify for the Europa League. It's It's either here or there, no in betweener. So call the season a wrap. The Newcastle game, whatever happens, happens. The Brighton game, whatever happens, happens. All roads lead to Wembley at this stage. So I feel Rooney was over the top with his utterances. But then what's unique about what he said afterwards was he at the end of the day he still backed the manager despite criticizing the manager for not taking the decision to miss games from the hands of the players. He still went on to say, despite us looking not structured, us not looking so good, he still wants Eric Ten Hag to have more time. And he was the only legend to say that. Roy Keane said the same thing. He wants this manager to have more time. He hopes this manager gets more time. Gary Neville had said it a couple of times over the past 3 days. Once at the 99 premiere, he did say that after the movie. And yesterday, before the game, he also the same thing. It makes you think, have these guys heard something that we do not know? Do they know of something? For instance, Gary Neville is part of the task force that's supposed to help with the redevelopment of Old Trafford. We'll get into Old Trafford very soon. Has he heard something from the owners concerning Ineos' stance on the manager? Maybe, and that's what probably they're transmitting with these utterances in the press. Let's just see how it goes. Eric Ten Hag's future has been a subject of discussion for God knows how long. It's going to rumble on until probably after the FA Cup final. We'll see where it goes. Old Trafford. Let's get to Old Trafford. Old creaky relic that is Old Trafford. I think fans should forget about the nostalgia and everything that's associated with the stadium. It's been a great stadium, but it's a relic right now. It's done. It's past its shelf life. It can't survive anymore. We should get out of there as soon as possible before it breaks down and hits someone. Honestly. Away dressing rooms are leaking. Everywhere is leaking. We are leaking goals on the football pitch, and the stadium is leaking literally. It's creaking. It's about to break down. We need to build a new stadium. And speaking of a new stadium, our new owner, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, it's unequivocal about his stance concerning Old Trafford. He says it's about time we moved and built the Wembley of the North. United deserve a whole new stadium. It's not just the stadium. He wants to develop the whole Trafford area. So it's a huge stadium development plan, of which a task force has been put in place, of which that task force conclusion is for us to build a whole new stadium and develop the area that Manchester United Stadium is actually situated in. So that's the news going forward with respect to the stadium. Earlier on, we did report that Sir Dave Brailsford has also said that Carrington is not fit for an elite football team. So all these things sum up what our previous, no, they're not even our previous owners, our owners, actually, the Glazer family, the majority shareholders of this football club have actually run this club down. They've just done patch jobs on these facilities. They've not improved on them. They didn't even have any plans at all to develop Old Trafford in the way that it best suits the club. Carrington has stood still for quite a long time. The team on the football pitch had not been great. Everything that happened yesterday with the results, with the showers of Manchester coming down and exposing the relic that Manchester United Stadium actually is, sums up the past 18 years under the Glazers perfectly. Sometimes things have to happen for a reason, not everything must happen by design, but we needed to see the worst of the worst yesterday for us to appreciate the situation that we find ourselves in. I think Ineos need to see the worst of the worst situation at Manchester United to appreciate the gravity, the extent, the magnitude of the work that is at hand. So yeah, all that went down yesterday. I see rival fans, Arsenal fans having a right old good time. See, they've been brilliant, yeah? 27 league wins in a season under Mikel Arteta. He's built something there. He's made a bit of history. That's even more wins than the Invincibles ever had. I think the Invincibles had 26 wins in that title winning season. But just a reminder, that may not be enough. It's Manchester City you're coming up against. It may not be enough. We've seen them do this to Liverpool on a couple of occasions, and they are hell-bound on doing it again. I come from a part of the world, yeah? I don't live in England. I wasn't brought up in England. I do have a mom that lives in England and visit on occasions. But then I do not feel that sense of hatred towards Manchester City like a lot of British Manchester United fans will feel. I came from a country in Ghana despite living in Germany, in Hamburg now. I don't care. I grew up hating Arsenal and Arsene Wenger. I grew up hating Chelsea and Jose Mourinho's team. I grew up hating Liverpool for what Liverpool are. I barely know any Manchester City fans in my entire life. I could count three, and then all three of them are actually Barcelona fans who have adopted Manchester City as their team because of Pep Guardiola. So I don't give a damn about them. I don't mind if they four-peat. Pep Guardiola is still not going to be better than Alex Ferguson in terms of who the greatest manager of all time should be. 13 Premier League titles out of 20 Premier League seasons still trumps the 5 or 6 out of 8 or something. Nobody can convince me, no matter how many times City win Premier League titles or whatever title that there is, that they're a great team, that they are the next big thing. It's their era, all right, but then that era is born of 115 charges behind their back. In a year's time, when Pep Guardiola is gone, all these things could be discredited based off the findings of the FA, and they're irrelevant in my opinion. So yeah, I'd rather City win it than Arsenal win it. And for those Chelsea fans who are having a right old good time that they are about Manchester United, we used to be kings, we used to compete for titles together. Now we are wallowing in mediocrity, fighting over Conference League spots. Get a grip of yourselves. This is the shout out to Kofi Bolasis in one of my groups. It's a Chelsea fan. It's always having a go. We can't, like you always say, second to 20th, no trophies for finishing between second to 20th. So yeah, just have a right old good time feel good about yourself, finishing about Manchester United, but we cannot be arguing over mediocrity. Let's just get a grip. We're in deep crap. I know this better than you do. You guys haven't competed for a league title for, 6 years? You haven't won a trophy in a couple of seasons. That's just how it starts. Next thing you know, you're talking about 11, 12 years without winning anything. So get a grip of yourselves, Chelsea fans, Arsenal fans. You could still end up with nothing this season. Second spot, sixth spot, and that's just about it. We could end up with a trophy, and that's just about trumps everything that you people would claim you've ever achieved this season. So yeah, that's it. And on transfer news, Benjamin Sesko. He's a young striker who plays for Leipzig. We were linked with him when he did play for Salzburg, but then he chose to go to Leipzig in Germany to further his development. Quite similar to how Erling Haaland chose to go to Borussia Dortmund rather than go to a big club right away. He's making waves in Germany now, and we've been heavily linked with him for quite some time. But the question is, do we want another young striker to come and struggle like the way that Rasmus Højlund has done, or do we want an experienced striker? If you ask my personal opinion, I'd rather we go for an experienced striker, probably a Premier League proven striker, rather than bank on another kid coming in to try and change our fortunes. Need a bit of know-how, someone who knows how to play better with his back to goal, knows a thing or two about, the league, how to make opportunities for himself, how to be more involved in play, how to link up play better. Take the pressure off Rasmus Højlund. He's done great. He's done okay. He just had the fewest shots, had the fewest chances created for him. It's had a right old tough season, but I think he's done okay with 14, 15 goals this season. That should suffice for a first season, but then we need a bit more experience going forward. So that's just about it. In the lead up to, is it the Newcastle game in midweek? Another game that we're probably not looking forward to, but would be joining you guys on United and Everything Football Podcast with Kwame Buffo. He'll be back. And we would have another special guest on the show, and we'll delve into the happenings of the season. We'll preview that game. We'll actually preview that game, and then we'll talk a bit about whatever that is new concerning Manchester United. Catch you in the next one.